Hi, I'm Kellie Kelm from the Food and Drug Administration. Specifically, I'm from the Division of Chemistry and Toxicology Devices, where most of the diabetes diagnostic devices are reviewed. Today, I'm going to talk about recent changes in the management in the Division of Chemistry and Toxicology Devices and how that impacts who you might need to talk to if you have questions for us. The impact of the SARS-CoV-2 public health emergency on our day-to-day work. And lastly, FDA's perspective on the future of diabetes devices. So you may have heard from my predecessor at this forum previously, Courtney Elias. And Courtney has been promoted recently to the office. So that's one of the changes recently in the management of the Division of Chemistry and Toxicology Devices. And I wanted to outline all of these for you and specifically the changes that would impact those of you who come and talk to FDA about your devices. So acting as Deputy Director now is Marinella Perez-Torres. And at the Diabetes Diagnostic Devices branch in our division, there's also been changes. About 6 months ago, Alon Silk, who was our branch chief, left the agency for other opportunities. So Leslie Landry is currently acting as branch chief. And with her, Yudo Wu is acting team lead in the branch. Both Leslie and Yudo have been in the division for many years, and they bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise to make sure there's continuity in talking to sponsors about these devices moving forward. Leslie is your go-to person if you have questions about blood glucose monitoring devices. And that's anything from your single-use over-the-counter meter, multiple patient use meter, including hospital meters, and hemoglobin A1C devices. Yudo is your go-to if you have questions about automated insulin dosing systems, AID systems, and all of the devices that go with that. So the CGMs, insulin pumps, controllers, algorithms, and all of the devices that would go with AID systems. So since I'm new to most of you, just going to give you a brief introduction to myself. I have been at the FDA for over 14 years, and all with the division. When I became a branch chief about 5 years ago, it was with the Cardiorenal Diagnostic Devices branch, which is one of the other branches in the division. And then I became deputy director and then have been acting and permanent director now for about 18 months. So many of you who may have been meeting with us the last 18 months, I may have had an opportunity to meet you. And so although previous to that, I think most of you would have interacted with Courtney. I've been at a lot of the meetings, been learning, interacting, and meeting with you, and learning about the current state of the state as well as future diabetes devices as well. So I'm excited to learn all about all of the exciting development in this field. So what is the impact of the SARS-CoV-2 public health emergency on what our division is doing? So our division is in the Office of In Vitro Diagnostic Devices and Radiological Health, or OIR, now often called Office of Health Technology 7, OHT7. And within OHT7, there are 4 branches that do all reviews on in vitro diagnostic devices like us. And one of them, the Division of Microbiology and Virology Devices, is where all the review of the COVID-19 tests is being done. And so that's over, so far since March and February, over 2,400 applications for emergency use authorization. And over 770 pre-UAs, which is people asking for feedback on study protocols. And of course, other supportive activities that we are doing, including details to our Department of Health and Human Services, helping with transport media, device shortages, And now that these devices are out there being used, recalls, allegations and complaints, and other post-market activities. So unfortunately, the number of applications continues unabated, and the backlog has grown because unfortunately we just haven't put enough staff towards the review of these EUAs. So recently, within the last couple of weeks, the office has decided to prioritize these EUAs and help support the Division of Microbiology and Virology devices with more resources from the other divisions. And so our division now is left, unfortunately, with only about 12 reviewers, managers, and medical officers to support our division's activities. And so what does that mean in terms of what we can do day to day? So our division is still reviewing clinical trials, formerly called investigational device exemptions, and breakthrough device designation requests within their normal required time period. We're still working on follow-on pre-submissions for breakthrough device designations and study risk determination requests as resources allow us in terms of timelines. Unfortunately, this change in resources will delay our ability to review many other submissions, and this includes other pre-submissions and other submissions, including 510Ks, PMAs, and related submission types. And we envision that this is going to be a shift in resources for about 90 days. And it's also going to impact our ability to provide timely feedback in terms of responses to inquiries by email or phone, or other ways that you might reach out to us. And we understand that this is very frustrating for people and companies that are making plans in terms of submissions for their products in the next few months. But we appreciate your patience, as obviously our office has prioritized working on the COVID-19 tests. So now I'm going to shift over to FDA's perspective on the future of diabetes devices. Talk a little bit about what we've done so far, including all the paths for interoperable devices, the regulatory paths, and then touch on hot trends and what's next as far as what FDA can speak to, and lastly share the news in case you don't know about it on our Inspire medical device development tool. So our division really focused thinking about the mission and the vision of the agency and applying it to diabetes devices. And when we did that, we really thought about a few things. So first of all, we really wanted to consider patient input. And that's by going to meetings, talking to patients who reach out to us at work, many vehicles for us to interact with patients and prioritize their input. We've tried to challenge the status quo, both in terms of how companies think about things, as well as our staff. And one of the ways that we've done this, especially with staff, is creating new efficient regulatory approaches, thinking about ways that we can be least burdensome, but also providing maybe some carrots, some things that both patients as well as companies might find desirable. We're very proactive in cybersecurity. I know many of you have probably talked to one of our experts, Naomi Schwartz, in our division. And as we talk to a lot of sponsors and investigators on their clinical studies, we try to interact a lot in order to help make more efficient study trial designs. And we've really tried to prioritize approving all of our clinical trial applications in the first round so that we know that you guys can start trials as quickly as possible. So I know that there have been talks in the past about one of these new regulatory paths, which is creating new regulations for interoperable devices. And the big three, which I have here in this interoperable device universe, are interoperable CGMs or ICGMs, ACE pumps, which is short for alternate controller-enabled infusion pumps, and interoperable automated glycemic controllers or iControllers. And then outside of these, there are still other products that can interact with these interoperable devices in order to sort of make systems that people with diabetes can use. So there are a lot of benefits to stressing interoperability. And one of them is that we believe it will spur digital device innovation. And so by creating these new regulatory pathways, these 3 regulations for those interoperable devices, we believe these paths will make accessing glucose and insulin data as inputs for digital platforms much more streamlined. So these regulatory paths may incentivize additional technology development while keeping accuracy and reliability really high, which is something that we know that patients are also, people with diabetes are also really looking for. So one of the 3 interoperable device regulations was created for ICGMs. And in the blue box is the formal language for the regulation. So this is a recent regulatory pathway for CGMs for these devices to interact with their devices. And the regulation sets out a requirement for a minimum level of accuracy and reliability, as well as a safe communication process to connect with compatible devices. This regulation also requires transparency, that is certain information that has to be in the labeling. So one of the things that that's been interest in has been a path for over-the-counter CGMs. And there is room in this regulation for over-the-counter CGMs. One positive about using this regulation is that it would maintain the accuracy and reliability of CGMs offered over the counter. Now, some other things that that we would need to see for someone who is interested in over-the-counter CGMs, like other over-the-counter products that our division regulates, is to give us information that shows that people can use the system, set it up, and use it successfully only by following the instructions. So when sponsors come in to talk to us about their over-the-counter CGMs, we are looking to find out who it's going to be used for and how they would use it. We can see the potential benefits for over-the-counter CGMs to the community, but we also know that glucose data could be more readily available for other uses. So if anybody is thinking about maybe an over-the-counter type of CGM, we encourage you to come in and talk to us about how that might be possible moving forward. So now I'm going to get into hot trends as well as sort of what's next. And I do want to preface this whole section with a statement and a reminder that FDA can only speak about devices that have actually received clearance, authorization, or approval from the agency. We have to keep other interactions confidential. So you may have heard about exciting, novel, innovative products in the pipeline, but I might not be able to speak about them because of this requirement of confidentiality. Some products, of course, may still only be in the research phase, or maybe on the market in other countries, which have different regulatory systems. And of course, some of these companies may not have even come to talk to us yet. So I just wanted to keep that in mind as I go into some of these sort of general products or device types that I'm going to talk about that might be pretty high level. So the types of products that and hot trends that we've, some of these we've already seen come through successfully, come through the agency, include smart pens, smart insulin pumps that connect to other digital platforms, including apps, and share information. We have CGM-based dose decision support apps, and then glucose trending apps, providing you information such as telling you that you appear to be high after lunch every day. That they can cull from the data and share with users. And for CGMs, having glucose readings directly on mobile platforms and follow apps is obviously something that we know users are really interested in. So what's next? Standalone algorithms. These would really allow patients to use AID algorithms with more flexibility in pump and CGM choice. And one of the things that FDA would really love to see is more options in the interoperable device space to provide more choices to people with diabetes. In the insulin pump space, remote bolusing from phones, and we know that there are pumps working on using other insulins or therapeutics. Work on mobile interfaces for closed loop insulin delivery and AID systems. And what's next includes having more devices available, including CGMs. We are constantly working and talking to innovators that are working on breakthrough devices through our breakthrough device designation system. And if you want more information on that, make sure you look up the guidance on that program. It's a way that allows FDA to interact with companies with shorter timelines if you have a breakthrough device. What's next also includes more devices for people with type 2 diabetes. And of course, everyone working towards and hoping for a fully closed loop system, and hoping that that's to come in the future. So we did want to share one piece of news in case you didn't see it, is that this summer, specifically in June, we qualified a medical device development tool called the Inspire Questionnaires. And Inspire stands for Insulin Dosing Systems, Perceptions, Ideas, Reflex, and Expectations. These questionnaires can be used to qualitatively assess the impact of automated insulin dosing systems on the psychosocial functioning and quality of life of youth with type 1 diabetes, as well as their parents and caregivers, and also in adults with type 1 diabetes, as well as their partners. So these questionnaires can be used as an endpoint in a clinical study. And there's more information on our website about this medical device development tool. So I encourage you to look that up. And if you're interested in using these qualified questionnaires in one of your studies, we encourage you to come in and talk to us about using that. As I said, it's a fully qualified MDDT, and there's more information on that on our website. So in summary, although we've had some changes in our management, our division still has a knowledgeable team in place to work with all stakeholders in the diabetes diagnostic devices space, including patients and innovators. And we continue to encourage early engagement, even though, unfortunately, that might be paused for the next few months. As I mentioned, the public health emergency is impacting our day-to-day work on non-COVID-19 tests, and we appreciate your patience, and we acknowledge your frustration, how that might impact those of you who are looking forward to submissions and having some new products available that might have been reviewed by FDA in the next few months. FDA has qualified a tool that can be used in studies to assess the impact of AID systems on the quality of life. And as I said, if you'd like to think about using that in a study, for example, as an endpoint, please look at our website for information about that and come talk to us about that. And lastly, as I gave a general high-level overview about new devices, what's next, We do continue to see new devices and ideas in the pipeline. I wish I could give you more specifics, but we remain focused on identifying the most efficient regulatory approaches, and have really always enjoyed working with all the stakeholders in the diabetes diagnostics space, and that I know will continue to be true moving forward. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. Thank you.